I woke up with a bit of a weird feeling today. I went right to the keyboard and I started basically going over kind of the last of my outlines here, the last of kind of my planning as far as timetables to get this next project done. And yet, all I was thinking about was yesterday's video. Something about putting my work out there, I guess for the first time, really, it piqued my interest. It hit me in a way that I was not expecting. I figured it was going to be some sort of formality, just something that I throw out there just for kind of the heck of it. And obviously, with what I explained before, kind of my intentions there. But I didn't think I was going to think much more about it. And yet, this morning, there was something about putting my work out there that felt very relieving. I think maybe for one of the first times, I wasn't as concerned with what happens to my work as far as getting picked up, getting recognition, etc. I was just happy to have sent it off. I was happy to have put it out in the world so that way people could, if they ever stumble upon it, come across it and read it. It was a very unique feeling. I've approached the writing process with very much a sort of intention behind the idea that, yes, one day I'll kind of get, discovered, basically, hopefully by some sort of agent, then get a book deal at some point, and hopefully, the book deal goes through and you get it gets published and all that stuff traditionally, and I get, some kind of recognition, I think, for it, right? That's always been kind of my long-term goal there. Perhaps it was vain, I don't know, but I feel different now. There's a different feeling about me doing that. There was a feeling of kind of a sense of satisfaction in a way, and there was less also of that needing to be recognized. There was less of that feeling that my work must be seen or it must go through this sort of channel and this sort of process. I was very content with just having my work out there for people to look at. For the first time in a long time, I feel somewhat satisfied in this process. It's certainly unique. It certainly is different. It's hard to explain. It's definitely not a feeling that I felt I felt before. At least not in a very long time with my work. And it's caused me to reconsider perhaps my path with this writing process. If for the first time in a while I now feel content just with having my work out there, I have to ask myself now, would I be okay at some point going a different route? This is obviously kind of vaguely, in its own way, hinting at potentially maybe foregoing the traditional process, foregoing the traditional publishing process. Perhaps instead this means that I consider maybe the self-publishing option. It's nothing that I've ever put any serious consideration into before. It's not a pathway that I was necessarily interested in. A lot of my bigger goals with the process here have kind of required that I get traditionally published, just sort of the way I wanted to kind of project some sense of writing career. And yet, it feels different now. It feels very, very strange to have that work out there, because I am feeling a really good sense of satisfaction in just having it out there. And perhaps now that might be the most viable method. That might be the most viable alternative now. If I can be happy with my work just being out there, if I can be content, then anything on top of that is just a bonus, right? It's the icing on the cake in a sense. Any sort of money I make or whatever basically that would come from perhaps the self-publishing process would just be a nice bonus. But if I am satisfied with just getting out there, if I get that sense of satisfaction from my work and just having it somewhere where someone can come across it, perhaps that's all I need in a sense. Perhaps that's all I need to pursue in this avenue. Um, yeah, I was not planning on getting up this morning, kind of reconsidering my entire pathway with the publishing process, and yet all day I've kind of waited till this evening to make this video because it's still been kicking around in my head, and I'm not sure which way I go with it. As of right now, nothing changes. I still go with the queries and all that stuff that I've been doing, and fingers crossed, maybe I get some sort of acceptance basically from an agent maybe in some months from now, and I go, yay, woohoo, and the whole idea of ever playing around with the idea of self-publishing, it kind of just gets tossed aside. And yet it's there now. Yet the bug is kind of there. I've been sort of bitten by it, I guess, in a sense. And I think it's going to be an idea that at least for the time being, it's going to be kicking around in my head. It's not, again, I'm not going to rush into this by any means, but it's a new consideration that I had not thought of before. It's interesting. It definitely reframes a lot of things. I've spoken before, I think, especially when I made that video about how my first novel, when it got rejected there by the publisher, how I said I was planning on trunking my novel, right? I had said, I basically would have been, at that time, only, a month ago, basically a month ago, I would have been happy just trunking a novel, right? I would have been happy having no one ever see my work rather than have it be picked up, right? Either it gets picked up or nobody ever sees it, and I was okay with that. In fact, I sort of invited that in a sense. And now it's a bit different. Now there's a part of me that's more intrigued potentially with an alternative method, maybe not even as a plan B, but more as a viable plan A. It's interesting. I'm going to keep playing around with that idea, but yeah. I mean, if you can tell by this video, I'm in a bit of a state of confusion about this, because again, it's this sort of relief that I feel right now is not the kind of feeling that I've felt with this writing process. A lot of the writing process has felt like holding my breath. This whole publication steps here, everything in this vlog, for the most part, it's always felt like I'm holding in a very deep breath. And to finally put my work out there, it felt like a bit of an exhale. Yeah. So I have no way to really end this vlog here. It's just kind of an idea. It's kind of sort of a feeling that's come over me. But maybe that ends up being the pathway, perhaps. I've got to think it over. And again, if I decide to do this, it won't be for months and months and months down the line before I ever do it. But it's an idea, and yeah, it's now been planted in me.